Every night, millions of people fall asleep with a fan running. It feels harmless. It feels comfortable. It might even feel necessary on a hot night when the air is thick and still and sleep feels impossible without something moving. But in South Korea, turning on a fan before you sleep is considered one of the most dangerous things you can do inside your own home. Not because of electricity, not because of the blades, because of what the fan does to the air around you while you sleep. And the strangest part? Western scientists spent decades dismissing this belief entirely. They called it a myth, a superstition, a cultural fear with no basis in reality. Articles were written mocking the Korean public for believing something so obviously false. They were wrong. Let's start with what a fan actually does when it runs in a closed room. Most people assume a fan cools the air. It doesn't. A fan moves air. That is the only thing it does. The temperature in the room stays exactly the same whether the fan is on or off. If your room is 30 degrees Celsius, running a fan all night will not change that. The room will still be 30 degrees when you wake up. What changes is how that moving air interacts with your body. When air passes across your skin at speed, it accelerates the evaporation of moisture from your skin's surface. That evaporation process pulls heat away from your body and creates a cooling sensation. You feel cooler even though the room temperature hasn't moved at all. That cooling sensation is the entire reason you turn the fan on in the first place. But here's what happens while you sleep that most people never think about. During sleep, your body's thermoregulation system, the system responsible for monitoring and managing your internal temperature, slows down significantly. You become less aware of temperature changes, less responsive to signals that something is wrong, less able to make the automatic adjustments your body would normally make while you're awake. The fan doesn't know this. It keeps running. The air keeps moving across your skin. The moisture keeps evaporating from your face, your lips, your nasal passages, your throat. And if the room is warm enough and the fan is close enough, something unexpected starts to happen. Instead of cooling you down comfortably, the fan begins pulling moisture from your body faster than your sleeping system can replace it. Your mouth dries out completely. Your nasal passages, which are supposed to stay moist to filter the air you breathe, begin to dry and crack. The mucous membranes lining your throat, which serve as your body's primary physical barrier against bacteria and viruses, start to lose their protective function. You wake up the next morning with a sore throat you can't explain, a dry mouth that feels like you haven't had water in days, congestion that wasn't there when you closed your eyes the night before, a headache sitting behind your eyes that no amount of coffee seems to clear. You assume you're getting sick. You're not getting sick. You already got sick while you were sleeping. This is not a myth. This is not a cultural superstition. This is basic human physiology responding to something it was never designed to handle for 8 consecutive hours. But it gets significantly worse. In South Korea, what became known as fan death, the belief that sleeping in a closed room with a running electric fan can kill you, has appeared in official government documents, newspaper reports, and public health warnings for decades. The Korean Consumer Protection Board issued formal warnings about overnight fan use as recently as 2006. Korean fan manufacturers were legally required by the government to include automatic shutoff timers on their products, specifically to prevent consumers from running fans through the night while they slept. For years, Western science writers treated this as a perfect example of irrational cultural belief. Entire articles were published explaining why fan death was physically impossible. The idea was used as a case study in how misinformation spreads within closed cultural groups. Then researchers started looking at the actual reported cases more carefully, not dismissing them, actually examining them. What they found was a pattern. The people dying in fan death cases were almost always elderly. The rooms were almost always completely sealed, windows shut, doors closed, no outside air circulation. The temperatures inside those rooms were almost always high, sometimes exceeding 35 degrees Celsius. And the fans in every single case were pointed directly at the face and body of the sleeping person from close range. What was actually happening in those rooms was not mysterious at all. It was hypothermia, not cold hypothermia. Overcooling hypothermia, when a concentrated stream of moving air is directed at an elderly person's body continuously for 6 to 8 hours in a sealed room, it can drop the surface temperature of their skin faster than their slowed thermoregulation system can compensate for. Their core body temperature begins to fall. Their cardiovascular system, already under stress from age, begins to struggle to maintain function in a body that is losing heat faster than it can generate it. By morning, some of them did not wake up. The fan didn't kill them through any supernatural mechanism. The fan killed them through a straightforward physiological process that happens to be more dangerous in elderly people, in sealed rooms, on hot nights, with the fan aimed directly at a sleeping body for an entire night. The South Koreans weren't describing something impossible. They were describing something real that nobody in the Western scientific community had bothered to actually investigate, because the conclusion sounded too strange to be worth investigating. But here's the part of this story that matters most. Because hypothermia from a fan requires specific conditions: elderly person, sealed room, high heat, prolonged direct airflow. Most people reading this don't fit that profile. So here is the risk that applies to almost everyone. Your respiratory system runs one of the most sophisticated air filtration operations in the human body. The mucous membranes lining your nose, your throat, and your airways are constantly producing a thin layer of moisture. That moisture layer acts as a physical trap. Every piece of dust, every bacterial cell, every viral particle that enters your nose gets caught in that moisture before it can travel deeper into your system. Your immune cells then neutralize whatever has been caught. You breathe in contaminated air constantly throughout your entire life. You don't get sick from most of it because the system is working every second you are alive. A fan running directly at your face for 8 hours destroys this system while you sleep. The constant directed airflow pulls the moisture from your mucous membranes faster than your sleeping body can replenish it. By the time you wake up, those membranes are dry, cracked, porous in places they shouldn't be. The moisture trap is gone. Every virus, every bacteria, every airborne particle that enters your nose for the next several hours has a direct pathway into your respiratory system with no barrier to stop it. You didn't get sick because someone coughed near you. You got sick because you spent 8 hours dismantling your own immune defenses while you were unconscious. Multiple studies have confirmed this mechanism. Research published in peer-reviewed journals found that people who regularly sleep with directed airflow pointed at their faces report significantly higher rates of upper respiratory infections compared to people who don't. The effect is more pronounced in people who already have compromised respiratory systems. Those with asthma, chronic sinusitis, or sleep apnea report measurably worse morning symptoms after fan-exposed nights than after nights without. The data is consistent. The mechanism is understood. The risk is real. And here's the final thing you need to understand about all of this. The problem was never the fan. The problem is where the fan is pointed. A fan running in a room with the airflow directed generally at a wall, toward the ceiling, circulating the room's air without sending a concentrated stream at a sleeping body, produces almost none of these effects. The dehydration risk is minimal. The mucous membrane disruption is minimal. The hypothermia risk essentially disappears. The danger is specific. It requires a fan aimed directly at a sleeping person, running for the duration of the night, in a room that limits competing airflow, which describes exactly how millions of people use their fans every single night of summer. The South Koreans called it fan death. The mechanism is real. The name just made it too easy to dismiss. The fan running beside your bed tonight is not your enemy, but pointed directly at your face, running through the night, in a sealed room. It is doing something to your body that you cannot feel while you sleep. And now you know what that is.